Welcome to Rico 12. I'm Justin B., your host and a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God, and an addict living in the miracle of recovery one day at a time. Rico 12 is an open to all addictions and afflictions organization dedicated to exploring the common threads of the differing manifestations of alcoholism, sharing tools, and offering hope from those walking a similar path. We gather from diverse backgrounds, faiths, and locations to learn and support one another. Our speakers come from various fellowships and experiences, demonstrating the universal principles of recovery. Rico 12 is not allied or affiliated with any specific 12-step fellowship. This is Rico 12 speaker meeting number 384. Thank you for joining us live or on the recording later. Today's speaker is Jessica C., a first-time Rico 12 speaker. Her talk today is entitled Out of My Mind and In Touch with God. I look forward to hearing more about this message in a few minutes, but first, a few quick announcements. Rico 12 does offer a variety of recovery resources, including multiple podcasts and social media communities. To explore more, you can visit us at rico12.com. That's RECO12.com, or check the chat and the show notes for links. We're still seeking for some speakers for the rest of the year, so if you or someone you know has somebody that your higher power is putting on you to share, please reach out to me at rico12pod@gmail.com. We'll get you signed up. Rico 12 is self-supporting, and your contributions help us continue this message. Thank you to all our spearhead donors, past and present. So grateful for all those who have given us contributions that keep us going financially, but even more so, word of mouth. Share with others when you hear a recording or a podcast episode that really resonates with you. Share it with those that your higher power puts on your mind. Your support, both financially and by word of mouth, truly makes a difference in helping us share these messages of hope and recovery. Each week, we receive light and inspiration from our speakers. Their experience brings hope, meaning, worth, and growth to us as listeners. Now, let's welcome today's guest speaker, Jessica C. Here's just a little bit about her. Jessica is a recovering addict and lifelong learner. She overcame substances, alcohol, and harmful pursuit of validation, money, and power. Jessica found peace through a 12-step program and new guiding values. She embraces mentors and community who help to redefine what works for her. Today, Jessica is living with heart, freedom, and purpose one day at a time. Take it away, Jessica. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you so much for allowing me to be of service. This is a real treat. I'll try to let God speak through me and carry whatever message he sees fit today. I mean, there's so many different ways and moving parts, of my story and of every person's story on earth. And so, like I said, I'll try to communicate what is needed to be communicated today to this particular audience. And the topic that I chose was out of my mind and in touch with God, because what I've been shown through working this program is that I have to be completely out of my mind to be in touch with God. I cannot be in here. I have to be in here. I'm pointing to my heart. And that is a concept that was so far removed. I was in my mind constantly from as early as I can remember. I just had this obsessive thinking, and I didn't know what that was until, like as you mentioned in my bio, some really beautiful teachers started to show up and explain to me through the language of the big book that my disease centers in my mind, right? And my duty every single day is to first get out of there, right? And get into my heart so that I may fit myself to be of maximum purposefulness to my fellow man. And there's a line in the book on page 130, and it's in the family afterward. And it says, God, he would like us to keep our heads in the clouds with him, but that our feet ought to be firmly planted on earth. And, what that means to me is that my head needs to be in a place, my thinking, I need to align my thinking on a spiritual path, right? So that I can be in constant faith right? Because the opposite of fear is faith. And I'm full of fear. My base level is I'm really, really afraid to lose something. And I'm really afraid to not get what I want. And that's been a trend for my whole entire life. So this program has taught me to keep this childlike faith in my thinking. And it gives me instructions on how to do that, right? Like I didn't know what that was before sitting down with a sponsor and going through the work and having an open mind to these instructions. Like, my thinking and my intentions and my beliefs are they're at the I know we're on camera, but we won't be when this is re-recorded. So it's let's just say it's at the bottom. It's at the bottom here. And then as a result, my actions are the result of my thinking, right? And so my thinking was crazy. So my actions were crazy. And then my life looked crazy, right? My life is on the top tier there. So these instructions, first and foremost, give me tools to place my thinking. I use the power of visualization. I place my thinking on a spiritual plane by constantly asking God to direct my thinking. I need to ask someone bigger than me to direct my thinking away from fear, away from self-pity, away from anger, away from jealousy, away from resentment. And when I do that, my actions become spiritual. And when my actions are spiritual, my life looks different. So now what's in my heart is lining up with what I'm doing in my day to day, right? And that's not what my life looked like before, because before entering this program, I was obsessed with everything. I was obsessed with not getting my way. I was very afraid of um, not getting my way. And I thought it was because, when I reflected back, I thought, oh, well, I was an only child. So, I was kind of spoiled. And that's not really the truth. Like the truth is that we didn't have a lot of money. So I don't really mean materially spoiled, but I just thought I didn't ever have to share. And now I realize that that's a function of my disease. I didn't just think, oh, I hope I get my way. I really felt like the world was going to collapse around me if I did not get my way. Just one more Beanie Baby is all I need, or one more troll doll, or like I just need to stay up for one more hour and watch TV. And if I couldn't do that, it was like my world was collapsing. And even when I'm saying that, I can remember the feeling, because it still comes up for me, and then and that translated into a huge obsession on how I looked. I hated the way that I looked. I wanted to change everything about myself. And eventually I did become addicted to plastic surgery and Botox and getting things done, and constantly changing the way that I looked. And drugs are a part of my story, but that's not where the obsession started. The obsession, how I got introduced to drugs, was that I was obsessed with boys. I wanted to be around criminals. I wanted to be around people that were feared, that were scary, that were respected, that were cool. And these boys smoked weed. So I started to smoke weed, and I am a type 3 drug addict. And so I did really enjoy the effect produced by weed. Um, and so I did that. I did that until I tried Coke for the first time. And then I didn't need to touch weed again because it was replaced by another substance. And until I got clean 2 years ago, I was always replacing substances with substances. There was very few stretches of sobriety, very few. And, the obsessions are multi-layered. Like I'm only starting to understand what these obsessions were. Like I said, I was addicted to weed, but it was because I was addicted to boys. Was I addicted to boys, or was I addicted to the power that I thought that they had, because I felt like I had no control and I didn't feel like I had a dad that was protecting me? Like, none of these things really make me an addict. But now that I have had this stretch of sobriety and this clarity, and my pineal gland is not calcified with all of these, external substances, I can really start to see, um, how layered my obsessions were, and why that's important to note and to reflect on is to really understand how out of my mind I need to get in order to have a conscious contact with something that's bigger than myself. I need to get out of there. It's really dangerous for me in there, you know. And I didn't have God. That was part of the problem, right? Like, I was seeking all this external stuff for years and years and years, and I was using my own will to get ahead and get my way. And I just remember like looking out the bus window and thinking like, why am I on the bus? You know, where's my helicopter? Where's my private jet? You know, like what am I doing in this 4 block radius that my parents seemed so okay with just being in? Like, why is everyone okay with just living this simple life? And I just was never okay with it. I had a very wild imagination. And there's a part of the book that just says, you know, I was forging the weapon that would later become this, I was, that would become this weapon that would boomerang back and cut me up. Right. And there's a lot of examples of that. You know, I started to learn how to lie and manipulate my mother from a very young age because I wanted my way and I wanted to get out and I wanted to go hang out with these people and smoke these drugs and do these things and underage sex and all of this stuff. And I forged those weapons like really early. And then as a result of kind of being out there, I discovered working in the sex trade, and I started working in a strip club very early, and new addictions were unlocked. The power over these men, and the cash in my hand, and the feeling of it, and the feeling of getting it over on my family, and they didn't know, and the feeling of being able to have all this cash in hand, and it gave me the ability to move around and do what I wanted and buy what I wanted. And you know, someone asked me like, do I think that I could have put down Coke and alcohol at that point in my life? And I said, yeah. And they asked me, do I think that I could have put down the lifestyle though? And I was like, absolutely not. There was just no way, you know? So like I mentioned, substances are a part of my story. When I put them in my body, it's not a normal reaction. I have a bodily disposition to binging when I put a substance in my body. It's all night, it's all day. It's moving from drinking to Coke to using Ativan to come down and then being really anxious the next day and going and doing the same cycle. So um but the reason that I need to sedate myself to that level is because I'm so uncomfortable in my own skin. I feel so out of place. I want to change I want to hire a doctor to slice every inch of my body and redesign it like some doll. That you know, these are the reasons that I needed to get out of myself. And if substances weren't introduced, if like they never existed on the planet, I still would need this program because I literally had no God. And I really believe that addicts, you know, and I know a lot of them because I'm very 10 toes into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous. And I have a strong fellowship. All of my best friends are in this. We all seek God together. This is a very tight-knit community that I'm a part of. And so I can say with certainty, because I know so many of us, that I really believe that we were born with a big God hole. I don't know about anybody else, but I know that us addicts have this big thirst for spirituality. And that's what I was trying to create. I was trying to create that with these boys and being in the club and the music in the background and thinking that I was in a movie, and I was constantly wanting more and it to be grander and never being satisfied because it wasn't God. It wasn't God. And until I found God, I didn't really understand what I was looking for, you know? And in my household, you know, my mom was pretty much agnostic. She didn't really believe, you know, her father came back from the war and said, you know, after what he saw, there is no God. And they had that in that household. And then my dad's side of the family was or is Greek Orthodox. So that's very religious, but I didn't understand. I didn't understand the language. My father himself wasn't a believer. And you know, my grandparents took care of me a lot. And so I think how they, in the same way that they say a seed is planted somewhere along the way with AA and it might prop up later. I think there were seeds being planted. I've had the really fortunate experience. That's my mother calling me on the line. I've had the real fortunate experience of being able to connect deeper with religion after getting spirituality as a result of working this program. I had a cousin getting married in the Greek church, and she asked me if I could be a part of her ceremony. And in that religion, you can't unless you've been baptized in an Orthodox church. And I hadn't been as a baby. And so I got to get baptized in an Orthodox church last year. And since then, I've been, going to church and doing that stuff and enlarging my spirituality, because that's what this book tells us to do. It tells us to enlarge, right? Like this book is only the first volume, right? That Bill wrote. Like, we don't know what lengths Bill went to enlarge his spirituality after this book was written. And I believe that his wish for us was for us to do the same. Like, I call it spiritual kindergarten, right? Like, I'm not done. I do my steps once a year. I mean, this is like my fourth set of steps that I'm doing. And taking other ladies through the book is just a part of my life. I work my step 12, and as a result, it enlarges. Like, I just don't go to a meeting to hear a message. I go to a meeting with the intention of bringing a newcomer with me, or bringing somebody who's having a bad day and asking them, "Are you sure you don't want to come? Can I pick you up?" Or getting someone's phone number, or giving someone my phone number, or asking them what's going on with them. Like, it's an evolution of the program, right? Like, it doesn't really end. And there's a line in the 12 and 12, or a bit of reading in the 12 and 12, and it says that we have learned that the satisfaction of instincts cannot be the sole end and aim of our lives, right? If we place our instincts first, we have got the cart before the horse. And that just blew my mind when I heard it, because I did not think about anyone else except for myself for one single second of the day before working this program. Like, it was Jessica, 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 Jessica. And that was just my base level. I didn't know anything else. Like I said, I didn't have any brothers and sisters. I didn't know what it was like to share. My parents weren't married. I didn't see what a relationship looked like, a give and take. I just didn't know. I just thought it was every man for her, for himself, and take, right? And we have this magic magnifying mind that it says in the book. So if that's the way that I was thinking from a young age, I created my own reality. Like, I created this reality in which I became a stripper, that I thought I was like in the movies, and I was there and I was on the take and all these men's money. And that was, all the people that were around me were doing the same thing and trying to amplify the way that I looked in order to do more of that, because I have a magic magnifying mind. And that to be said, when I found the program and I started to actually apply these principles, that became magnified. Now my whole life is completely upside down. It's not like a little bit different. It's a complete turnaround. And how did that happen for me? Well, I didn't think I was going to be doing drugs into my 30s. And when I was, I started to get really scared. And it wasn't the peak of my drug use. If anything, from the outside, maybe people thought, "Oh, she's actually doing better. She seems like she's doing fine now." But that wasn't the case, because spoiler alert, there's no what's the word? Um, Functioning cokehead. Like, there's no even functioning alcoholics. Like, it's like you're an alcoholic or you're a cokehead. And I was doing coke, and I was drinking after I said I wouldn't. And that really is what qualifies me as an addict. Like, I can qualify by telling you a bunch of the times that I used and abused people and drugs. But what really qualifies me is by telling you how I tried to stop and I couldn't. Like, I couldn't. So that's when I started to really understand that I was powerless. So when I came in to the rooms, I already did a step one because I had tried to stop and I couldn't. I changed my number. I blocked all of these people. I blocked all my drug dealers. I tried to work a regular job. I tried to show up in different circles. I moved. I moved cities. I moved cities again. I came home. Like I kept, no matter where I go, there I was, as they say. And when just a casual Tuesday night, like at your hairdresser's house, turns into like getting into a bag of Coke after you said you weren't going to do it anymore, and I'm not happy in my relationships, and none of them are working out, and I don't have a husband, and I don't have a baby, and I can't string together a legal career. I'm not in control. Like something else is propelling me. My mind wants these things and has these moral and philosophical convictions, and my feet are moving in a different direction. And it's not making sense. Just like the line that I opened with, like, God wants me to have my feet planted on earth and my head in the clouds. It's almost like it was the opposite. My feet were in the friggin' clouds. Like, where are you going? What are you doing? And it's almost like my head would scream at my feet, and now my feet just follow my heart realistically. And so the seed had been planted, so to speak, because I had been married to a client that I met when I was working as a dancer. And again, like I'm in the movies now, I'm in Pretty Woman, and I'm in this really extravagant situation where there's a lot of money, and I had made myself a chameleon to fit into that world. And nobody around me for 6 years even knew what my backstory was or where I even came from. I just implanted myself into this, well, in Toronto, we call it Bay Street, but a Wall Street existence of finance and, highfalutin ways. And in that relationship, my partner was also a really bad alcoholic. And we tried a couple of measures to help him. And one of them was to get a counselor who showed us these AA meetings. And it wasn't until years later that I went back into them when I started to feel really spiritually bankrupt, like years and years later, after that separation, after trying different things, after moving, after periods of abstinence, after periods of locking myself up and not, being able to be around anyone, just to stay sober, which isn't sobriety, by the way. That's not freedom. That's not recovery. So I re-entered the rooms and I dabbled in them, and I ran into a girlfriend that I knew from outside of the rooms that had been 12 years sober. And I knew we had some mutual friends and like bikers, and so that's the qualification, right? Like for me, I needed you to qualify that you were like from where I'm from in order for me to like trust you or like listen to what you had to say. So to me, she seemed like me. It's like I'm looking at me, right? And so we ran into each other, and she had been having a relapse in behavior. So she had recommitted to her steps. And I had committed to a first set of steps, and it opened up my world in a huge way because she introduced me to my sponsor at the time, Nikki, who started slamming God down my throat. And I just became really enamored with the program and the fellowship and the idea and the conceptions that were in the book. And I really, really was taught and told that I had to take out, empty my cup entirely. Like if I was going to have, some water and I had some coffee in my cup, I would need to empty it out completely in order to fill myself up with this new way of living. And, it's not an overnight matter, but I am about to be 2 years sober. And the gratitude that I have for this program, like the way that I am able to get out of my head today and actually, be present in the moment, which is really where things are happening. They're happening here. They're happening right here, right now. They're not happening in yesterday. They're not happening in tomorrow. I'm not obsessed with the way that people are treating me. I'm not obsessed with outcomes that I cannot control. I'm here. And that's because of teachers repeatedly explaining to me that I need to do service, that I need to do inventory, that I need to do sponsorship. And these are just these repetitive tools that I completely just keep recycling on a daily basis because I have a very bad memory as an addict. And I need to be reminded all the time of what I need to do. And as a result, my thinking is like, it's simple, right? Like it's almost the feeling of having a drink because before my brain was like a spaghetti factory. So it was all of these different ideas and manipulations and thoughts about how I could bring about these outcomes that I thought that I wanted. And it was a lot. And now it's just one solution. It's like connect to God, and as a result of doing that, I want to be of service. I want to help other women. I want to be involved in the community. I want to be of service to my colleagues, my mom, my brothers and sisters in this program, and just strangers that I meet outside, because when I'm doing that selfishly, when I am doing that, I get out of my head and I'm very, very, very sick when I'm in my own thoughts. And that to me really sums up what the program is. Like it allowed me to get out of there long enough to connect with something that's bigger than myself. And I really believe that if if you don't choose this path, like really make a decision, which is what step 3 begs us to do, like your master will be chosen for you. People will say like, oh, how do I give myself will over? Well, just reflect on your life and see where you've already done that, right? You did it with your boyfriend. You did it with your husband. You did it with your parents. You did it. You did it with a lifestyle like I did. I would have done anything to be a part of certain people's lifestyles, or have done anything for certain males in my life, or even females that were running the show. I was constantly looking for direction. I thought I was like, you know, running my own life. I wasn't, right? And today I get to wake up and just be like, okay, I can take my hands off the wheel because I have been shown this way of life that creates this environment where I can be accountable and be responsible and get my ducks in a row, so to speak, and then just leave the results up to God. And, it's really radical, but it's really, really, really worth doing. And I think I'll end by just saying that, like, somebody brought this to my attention, and that is that if you've never actually done the 12 steps, like done them, like worked a 12 step, not half, not once you tried it, not your sister tried it and failed, not 11 steps, like really done them, then that's really fucking great news, because they might be able to work for you. Like they actually could work for you because it's one thing that you haven't tried. I tried everything, and not just once. I tried the same things over and over and over, expecting to get the result. We know that's insanity. But when I actually did this thing, my whole I had an insane psychic change, a huge shift in dominating values. I've tapped power to be able to do things that I never could do. I can tap discipline that I just never had before. I have consistency. I'm able to sit things through, see things through, have patience, create, be a great friend, be a great sponsor, a great employee. And I'm telling you, I had no ability to do any of that before. And that was just by sitting with a sponsor, doing the steps and following the suggestions. And I think I will end there, Justin.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jessica. I loved your story. Thanks for sharing that. I love the energy and the message that you shared. I've written down several questions here, and a reminder to our live audience, if you have a question for Jessica, please type it in the chat. If you'd like to remain anonymous, either send anonymous please in there or send it directly to me in a direct message, and I'll get to those questions as they come along. If not, I'll read your first name when I ask the question. First question I have for you, though, is something you shared towards the end of your share, Jessica. You talked about emptying your cup so that it could be filled. What types of things do you do to empty your cup that may have something in it that's blocking you from being filled with God, what types of things do you do to empty that?
Okay. First thing that comes to mind is gratitude. It sounds corny. It sounds cliche, but it's cliche for a fucking reason. Gratitude. Like my cup is full of fear, and I cannot empty that fear out until I start looking around and tangible actions. Like I am very grateful for this house. I love the neighborhood that I live in. I'm so happy that I'm here with you. I'm grateful that I have many friends that are going to call me after and say, great job. Like I'm going to be grateful for the things and the people that are around me right now instead of drifting off into things that are not going my way, right? My perceived way. So gratitude is a huge one. Prayer, next I'm going to connect. I'm going to ask God to direct my thinking, which means just remove what the thinking is. So if I want God to direct my thinking, essentially I'm asking him to get the thoughts out of there that are filling that up and just replace it with what I am supposed to be doing, what I'm supposed to be saying, and what I'm just supposed to be being for this day, for this moment, for this second right now.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Rico 12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Jessica. From an outsider looking in right now, it sounds like from your life experience, you have lived it. You've had great experiences. You've had, the money, the prestige, all the things that that a lot of people are pursuing and saying, this is what my plan for me is. Talk to me a little bit about, well, now you say, you know what, that can't drive me. I have to be driven by what God's plan is for me now. How does that plan look different maybe? Or how do you accept the difference in what God's plan is versus what your plan was that from some people's perspective took you to places that were amazing, but may not have been?
Okay. Well, I truly had to go through a lot of pain points for that growth. That's really the truth. We say in the rooms, experience, strength, and hope. Like, really think about that. Experience, strength, and hope, not education, strength, and hope. I had to go through it in order to understand what the hell I was thinking, what I was doing, why I was doing it. I have no idea how to explain any of this shit other than to draw from my own personal experiences. Yes, I use big book language. Yes, the directions help me, but it's my experience combined with the directions, right? And yeah, to your point, yeah, I had it and it didn't work. I was still miserable. I was upset. It took me to weird places. I couldn't get full. Like I couldn't, like I'm full. Like right now that I'm here, I'm talking with you, I'm full. I will just use that word, full. I'm either like empty or full. As an addict, there's no middle ground. I can't stand being in the middle. I hate it. Right. And so the pursuit of all of these things got me into the rooms of Cocaine Anonymous. And so I have to remember that. So every time I have a plan or an idea, I really actually have to run it by one of my brothers and sisters that is actually doing this thing as well. And that's something that's been ingrained in me. I don't make my own decisions now because I know that my decision making is broken. I've abused that privilege. I can see your situation because I'm armed with the facts about my addiction. You can come and tell me, Justin, you can call me up and you can tell me your situation. And I bet you that through God, I will speak so much knowledge over you that it's going to solve that problem. But when it comes to my own problem, I cannot see too clearly because I'm clouded by fear, and I'm clouded by all of the things that I that are ingrained. They're still ingrained. It says in our book, we just tapped power. I lived that way for very, very, very many years. So I'm just learning how to be in conscious contact with my creator.
Yeah, thank you for walking through that. I love how you discuss that. That really opened my eyes to some things. Got a question from our live audience. This is from Nikki. She says, I know the fear of money is a big fear for many. What actions do you take daily to relieve this deep obsession and sick programming?
Sick programming. That is what it is. Sick programming. What actions do I take? Again, I'm going to have to say gratitude is a big one. I have to go into gratitude constantly because it reminds me of what God has done. I say gratitude, but I say it lightly. Like, if I'm going to elaborate on it, I need to be reminded of what God has done for me. Like, there is no dollar amount. Like, this makes me emotional. Like, there is no dollar amount that you can ever come up with to quantify like the freedom and the peace that I have in my heart today. Like, there's just no money, right? So I would have had to spend, if I had to spend millions of dollars, mostly of other people's money, and squander it and do things that, and not be satisfied by them, and come back around with my tail between my legs and lose all these material possessions that I needed and I wanted so badly at some point, in order to come back around and on my knees and beg for help and have it come to me in this form, somehow in this way, through these mentors and these teachers and these sponsors, right? Then to bring it back to Nikki's question, then I need to be reminded constantly of what I just described to you. I need to constantly be reminded, and that does happen through gratitude. That happens through gratitude, and that happens to also by serving others, because when I'm serving others, I'm completely out of my head. So the obsession that Nikki just mentioned is removed when I'm in service. And I'm telling you, that is the only way that I've ever had a clear head. That feeling of what people describe, oh, after meditation, or that. No, that doesn't work for me. Yoga, forget it. It's a nightmare. I'm in my head for the whole hour, right? So just forget it. So when I'm in service to others, I have a completely blank slate in which I use to get downloads from God, right? And I cannot hear God when I'm listening to Jessica, right? So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. Thank you so much, Jessica. I love the clarity that you're speaking. A quick question or a quick observation, I guess, on this. I've now been in 384 of these meetings and spoke to addicts of every different kind, virtually every different kind from every different fellowship. You are the first time I've ever heard someone verbalize, I became addicted to plastic surgery and Botox, and you talked about everything there. Why don't you take just a minute to help others who may be in that situation and aren't aware of it? Talk about your experience with that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I mean, I can classify it as an addiction now because it is, right? I didn't understand what that was, but it's not normal, right? Like, it's not normal to want to change everything about yourself, right? And like I think I mentioned at the beginning of my speak, obsessions are multi-layered. Like, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Like, all I know is that I loved male validation. As soon as I started getting attention from boys, older boys, it took me out of myself and I went seeking it. I went everywhere seeking it. I would go to different subway stations and different areas and take the long way home to see if I could get more of it, right? So I'm sure that was where it was born, right? If I could maybe have more of it by changing the way that I looked. And of course, I was obsessed with, I'll just age myself, but when, 106 in Park and hip hop videos and this type of aesthetic, this big butt and big boobs aesthetic was very popular when I was 12 and 13, and Jerry Springer was very popular. And these were the imagery. We're being programmed, as Nikki said, right? And so I mean, I think the definition of an addiction, part of it is like, well, you would do anything to get it. And that's exactly what I did. I would do anything to get the money to pay for these surgeries. I would put my health at risk. I was partying. I could have died on the table millions of times. I was doing coke, sometimes the night before. I was not, treating myself exactly with health and care after like post-op. And, it was an obsession because it was all I thought about. Like when I think of how much time I spend as a woman on the way that I look today, it's like 5% of what it used to be. Like when I say it was 100% of the time thinking of how I could change things and actively pursuing different doctors and different procedures and getting the money to do that. That to me, that's an addiction and it's obsession, right? If that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks for walking through that. And I hope it's helpful to somebody out there who may be thinking, man, if I just get this done, I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied. Oh, the next thing, and in that cycle of insanity. So thank you for going through that. Talk about, you talked about you'd go through periods of abstinence, you'd go through periods of sobriety from time to time about different things, but you were not well. Talk about your experience of abstinence does not equal recovery. Sobriety is not well. Hey, Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to RICO 12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Yeah, I mean, and different definitions of sobriety. Like until I came into a program where they said all mind-altering substances. Like I remember there was one time, just going back to the plastic surgery thing, I had an infection. I had my nose done and I had an infection and I went into the hospital and I was there for 3 nights and I was on Vyvanse for ADHD. And I had snuck in some of my own Ativan, and they were also giving me Ativan. And I remember, and I was reading about addiction. Like I was interested, like I was reading Russell Brand's book about the 12 steps. And I thought that was sober. Like I was like speedballing like Vyvanse and Ativan. And like, I was like, this sobriety thing rocks. Like, I love this. Right. And so that's a version of what you're asking me about. Complete abstinence. Like when I got my real estate license, again, I was abusing Vyvanse, but in order to do it, I had to lock myself away from everyone so that I could study, but I was also on Vyvanse, but I also had locked myself away. So that's another way that I could be abstinent, is by literally locking myself away, which isn't a life, right? I tried going on health retreats. I would try going on hiking excursions. I would block off all these different things for workouts and juice cleanses and block people's numbers and hang around healthy people only and block the people that were doing drugs. And I would try to move all of these pieces around and I would get different periods of absence. But I never, and this is important, I never had the intention when all that was going on of becoming completely sober forever. I just thought that I could. And this is important for anyone that's listening, because I think a lot of people think this. I thought that if I could get some sobriety, that I could go back and drink like a normal person. And that was my understanding for a long time, probably until I was halfway through my first set of steps. Did I really realize? And the reason for that is because when I was halfway through that set of steps, I was still slipping. And by the grace of God, I would slip, I would go drink, and then I would come back the next day. And it was in doing those slips that I realized that what they were talking about in the book, about how it's a progressive illness and it doesn't get better. So the education that I was getting from the book and the experience that I was getting from going out and trying controlled drinking was really the magic that I needed for me to really understand that this is like a all or nothing situation, like complete abstinence, if that makes sense. Does it?
Makes sense to me. Yeah. This all or nothing. Now, a newcomer may go, well, holy crap, I've got I've got 8 things that I can think top of mind right now that run my life. How am I going to dump all 8 of these things right now? I can't. I will die. So how do we talk to somebody who's coming in a place like that?
Okay, great question. You don't have 8 things. You have one problem. It's drugs and alcohol. It is. I promise you. I know that it feels like a million things because it does. Even to me sometimes like I have a million things. It's like no, no, no. You have one thing, and that is that you are out of your fucking mind, and we need to be befogged, as it says in the book. Like what the beautiful thing about this is that once you're chemically sober, you are 50% recovered. Like have step 1, we are powerless, dash, my life is unmanageable. The powerlessness piece is doesn't exist when there's no chemicals in your body. I'm sorry to tell you, there's no cravings. Like you might think that you want to drink, you might romanticize having a drink, you might want to watch porn or whatever your addiction or your previous addiction was, but there is no real craving. Like it's out of your system, right? So now you're 50% recovered. So now, congrats, you're 50% there. You all you have to do is open up the book because the rest of it is about the unmanageability of life, right? So it's like you have to take the first steps. If that's detox, if that's locking yourself away, if that's 90 meetings in 90 days, no, these things will not keep you permanently sober, but you have to get the drugs and alcohol out of your system in order to see that those other 9 problems that Justin just mentioned will literally take care of themselves. When I straighten out spiritually, I straighten out mentally and physically. When I got straight spiritually, my physical, I have no problem going to the gym. I have no problem eating healthy. I have no problem maintaining my weight, and I'm not obsessed with it. I just take care of the body that God gave me. My mental problems, my depression, my ADHD, all that shit, it went away. I'm not on one prescription pill. And that's as a result of working the program and getting spiritually straight. But I had to stop using drugs and alcohol in order to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I don't think I think you probably didn't wake up one day, like right after clearing out the drugs and alcohol from your system and say, you know what? I'm immediately going to tell myself I'm off the ADHD medication and stuff like that.
No.
Correct. Talk to us about the responsibility in anything like that.
Actually, I'll tell you a story. So that's a really good point that you just made. So I got insurance through work last year. They like finally gave realtors insurance. And it took me a while because sometimes I procrastinate. It took me a while to set it up online. So when I went to go set it up online, I realized that I would be like entitled to reimbursements for everything that I'd spent on prescriptions for the year. So I was like, great, I'm going to get it. So I have one naturopathic medicine that I use for my thyroid. Of course, they didn't cover it because it's naturopathic. Fuck them. But anyway, so then I went to our local pharmacy here in Canada. It's called Shoppers Drug Mart. And I wanted a printout of all my medical stuff so that I could get my money back. And this is like 8 months into the year. So let's just say 8 months. So I said, for 2025, give me my medical expenses. And they were like, you don't have any. You don't have anything from this year. So I was like, what? Because like you said, it wasn't a conscious thing. I was like, that's so weird. So then I said, okay, give me 2024 because I'm going to change the date because I was still stealing. Okay. This isn't an overnight matter. Okay. So I was going to change the date. So give me 2024. And it was 10 pages long, Justin. It was 10 pages long. It was Adderall. It was Ativan. It was some antidepressant. The name escapes me. And by 2025, I was off of them. And it wasn't conscious. It literally just was removed. Does that make sense?
Hey, Rico 12 Spearheads. If our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Rico 12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at rico12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Rico 12 spearhead. Yeah, it does. It does make sense. And that's very cool. I think if it was a conscious decision, oh, I'm just going to cut out these things that have been prescribed to me, it may be different than the unconscious part of things, things happening naturally. And I appreciate that. And that's one thing I just want to clarify to our listeners. Properly appointed authorities. Go to those people before making the decision. I'm just going to jump out of whatever doctors have prescribed me in the past. So good. Question for you that I still have. You started out your talk saying my duty is to get out of my mind. Talk to us a little bit about duty and the motivation behind doing what you do today in 12-step work. Is it duty all the time, or is it different levels of motivations you have?
It's my sole purpose. It is my sole purpose to give this thing away. I cannot express enough what this program has given to me, and when the step 12 directions are to give it away. Like, if you've done this thing thoroughly, you want nothing more than to give it away. It is the only reason that I have been spared a lifetime of misery or death, right? Or early death, right? And as I mentioned earlier, it's the only thing that gets me out of my head. It's maybe duty is not even the right word. I mean, it's just a pleasure. It's a passion. It's the main component of my schedule. It's not an addition. Like, it is my schedule. And then everything else rolls around, being in hospitals and institutions, jails, helping other women get on their feet, helping people just figure out how to create a routine that's healthy, get back into working out, get back into eating properly, hold people's hand that needs to go to a meeting, that is afraid to walk into a meeting for the first time. Like, whatever it looks like, I have to literally fit myself to be of maximum usefulness to my fellow human, not just my fellow addict. I took and took and took and took and took. That was my life, was taking, right? And so if God would have me give back, then that's what I have to do in order to maintain this thing.
And that's a big deal. I mean, I think if you would have approached yourself a few years ago and said, hey, guess what? Your entire shift of life is going to change from taking to giving. How do you think you would have responded to yourself if you would have come to yourself a few years ago and said that?
It sounds crazy. It sounds like Chinese. It doesn't even compute. And I know, because I can see the look on people's faces when, my fellows and I get into these conversations with, like, normies, quote unquote, or the people that have known me from before, and they see me now and there's like, what is she on now? Like, it's that part of the book where it says, Ebby comes in and Bill's like, this guy was cracked on alcohol and now he's cracked on religion. And that it has to be that radical. It can't just be like, we're doing this thing. It's got to be like, God is everything or God is nothing. Like, it's got to be that radical,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You referenced your parents a couple of times in this talk. Talk to me about how your relationship with them has evolved over the years and maybe changed and improved over the last couple of years, or maybe not. Where is that at right now?
Okay. My relationship with my mom has improved a lot. I've really understood that she's an untreated Al-Anon. I had to use labels like that, but it is helpful. She herself got an Al-Anon sponsor, and she hasn't really stuck it out. But I think just that basic knowledge has really helped our relationship. I had no patience for her before. I had no patience for anyone before. She doesn't deserve that. Through working a step 4 and a step 5, I understood that my narrative around my childhood was completely imagined. You know what I mean? And I just have so much more am I patient with her all the time? No, but I'm very quick to apologize. And my sponsor, Nikki, really taught me from very early on how to like create a living amends. Like it's not enough to just be like, oh, I'm recovered. I have to actually take action steps. Like I'm gonna spend every other Sunday with her, you know? And then Nikki would be like, really? The whole day? And I'm like, well, yeah. And she'll be like, but you're not gonna do that. You're not going to do that without snapping. So why don't you cap it to 2 hours, right? And so these instruction manuals for life, or it is how I've improved my relationship. It's not like, oh, God has entered Jessica and now Jessica's relationships are better. Like it's through action. Okay. And I have a best friend that's like a sister that I totally had a falling out with in addiction, that we are amazing now. And it's one of the best relationships in my life. And she's had a baby and I'm an aunt. And then that was a result of working the amends process and being, you know, living amends to her. And that has been the most magical thing ever. There are people on my dad's side of the family that still don't speak to me. They don't understand. I made an amends to them. It wasn't well received. That happens sometimes in the amends process. My father, who was an addict, I understand him more now because I understand my own addiction, but I went through a wave of being a little bit more forgiving to him than to vacillating back into like seeing other men in the room get clean and like understanding that it is extremely irresponsible to put drugs and alcohol before your kids. So then going kind of vacillating back into that resentment. So that's a work in progress, if that makes sense. Like, everything is perfect and nothing is perfect. It's been the best 2 years of my life and the worst 2 years of my life because I just can understand and see things now. And sometimes that's painful. Like without my medicine, it can be painful, but I can see clearly now, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does, Jessica. Thank you so much for your share today and everything you've expressed to us and your experience, strength, and hope. Do you have any final words of wisdom before we wrap up here?
Oh my God, I have no wisdom. I'm a fucking idiot. And that's exactly why I'm here. I'm just so grateful that I can actually shut my mouth and open up my ears and listen to someone else that has done this before. And that is exactly what I will leave off on. If you just find someone in the room that has a little bit of what you want and you just listen to what they have to say and you continue to keep giving out your number and growing your fellowship, it's not going to happen on your own. You won't be able to do it on your own. Make friends in this program, use people's numbers, go to the same groups all the time so people can know your name and know your face, and like things will start to fall into place.
Thank you so much for your share, Jessica. And just for everybody out there, Jessica let me know that she and Nikki M, the Noodle It Out with Nikki M, our Rico 12 sister, are teaming up with an Instagram and podcast for recovery resources. I've put the Instagram handle in the chat. I will put it in the show notes of the podcast. So anybody listening, just go look for that to get connected to that and see where that goes and how to follow that. So now let's move into closing this up. Thank you, Jessica, for an amazing Rico 12 speaker meeting. You did an amazing job. Grateful to have you here. If anybody out there still has a question or would like to continue this conversation, join our WhatsApp community. You can email me at rico12pod@gmail.com to be added there. If you'd like to connect with Jessica, you can email me. I can get you connected there, or you can go to this Instagram and follow that and see where that's at. If you haven't yet, please consider rating and reviewing the Rico 12 podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It's a powerful way to work Step 12 and share this recovery with others. Come back next week for another great speaker and Q&A session with Johnny Q, who will be speaking to us with a talk entitled How a Near-Death Experience Made Me Realize That My Sobriety Date Did Not Exist. We still have a few weeks open between now and the end of the 2025. So if you want to speak, if you know somebody that wants to speak, reach out to me. We'll get you scheduled. And let's close out with the Lord's Prayer. Jessica will send us out with that in this meeting.
Thank you so much, Justin. I appreciate you allowing me to be of service and for everyone on the meeting. We will close out with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen, amen. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah.
Remember, everybody, there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Keep coming back. When you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.
There was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to scream, but the sound never came out. So he reached for the bottle to wash the pain away, 'cause what he wanted so badly was to live a different way. And all of his problems and all of his pain filled up the puddle and rose with the rain. His ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake. For certain that he was just a fake, just a fake. Was a man put his hand by the side of his mouth, and he wanted to share, but only lies ever came out. So he reached for the needle to numb the pain inside, and the truth that he yearned for shriveled up and died. And all of his problems, all of his pain filled up the puddle, rose with the rain. The ship kept on sinking to the bottom of the lake.